The Russian topes, explosions are thundering again. The local port has been attacked by naval drones with a powerful hit reported. A ship may have been struck. Footage of the aftermath of the attack filmed by Russians themselves has appeared online. Where else did the friendly drones pay a visit? Stay tuned. The enemy is suffering huge losses while the Ukrainian armed forces are confidently holding their positions and destroying Russian occupiers on the approaches to Myrnohrad and in the urban areas of Pokrovsk. We'll tell you in detail very soon what's happening right now on the hottest section of the front. Trump can sleep soundly. US senators have reached a bipartisan agreement that will allow the shutdown to end and the American government to resume operations. The US president stated that the country is close to restarting government institutions. You'll find out about this very soon, said the head of the White House. In China, they are developing pills that supposedly can extend life to 150 years. The drug is based on grapeseed extract and increases the lifespan of mice by almost 10%, extending life by 60% from the start of treatment. Well, the main thing now is that they don't end up in Russia. We'll cover all this and more in detail right now, but first, give this episode a like. We're starting. In the Pokrovsk area, the Russians are conducting a strategic offensive operation. They have gathered a huge number of troops to gain an advantage and break through the Ukrainian defensive line. This was reported to the New York Post by the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi. However, according to him, Kyiv is holding firmly onto this logistically important city. The situation on the front line is indeed tense. The enemy is conducting a strategic offensive operation. They have concentrated most of their forces, creating an advantage in their attempts to break through our defensive line and capture this area, the commander explained. He refuted the claims of Russian propagandists that Pokrovsk has fallen and that Ukrainian troops are surrounded. According to Syrskyi, after the events of September, the counterattack, which cost the occupiers about 13,000 casualties and allowed Ukrainian forces to clear more than 165 square miles, actually resulted in the opposite of what they claim. They continue to show this territory on their maps as if it is under their control. But this claim that the enemy has captured almost everything and is about to finish the job does not correspond to reality, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces explained. Meanwhile, the pace of the Russian offensive in Pokrovsk has temporarily slowed down. Russian forces are present in most areas of the city, but they are unable to encircle it. Capturing the city remains a top priority for the aggressor, while the enemy continues to block logistics in the armed forces of Ukraine. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated, the fiercest fighting is taking place in the Donetsk region. The Russians are not achieving success there and are suffering huge losses. More on the current situation at the front coming up next.
The intensity of the fighting. In Pokrovsk it has decreased, but the Russians are not giving up on their plans to occupy the city. As the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrskyi, said on the telethon, Pokrovsk is now a continuous fortified area. According to him, there are several places where the Russians managed to slip through the engineering barriers. But the Ukrainian armed forces know exactly where these places are, so the situation as a whole is under control. Syrskyi noted that there are also plans B and C for all possible developments of the situation. However, the enemy is not abandoning its plans for occupation. In the Pokrovsk area, the Russians have concentrated 50,000 troops. This information was also confirmed by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, during a conversation with journalists on November 7th.
The enemy's #1 goal is to occupy Pokrovsk as soon as possible. This goal remains unchanged. According to our military, there are 314 Russians in the city itself, but the grouping around the city is very large.
In an interview with The Guardian, the head of state stated that the fiercest and most brutal fighting is currently taking place in the Donetsk region. But there, the occupiers have suffered heavy losses and have not achieved any success. As military counterintelligence officer, Colonel of the SBU Roman Chervinsky told Kyiv 24 TV channel, despite the fact that the Russian occupiers have still not managed to capture Pokrovsk, the enemy has cut off logistics. Therefore, the command now has to decide whether to continue the defense with new forces or to withdraw the units from the city.
We see that Pokrovsk has nevertheless held out. But thanks to flanking attacks and flanking maneuvers, the enemy has still achieved its goal and cut off logistics. In fact, our unit is now almost in operational encirclement.
At the same time, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War report that the pace of the Russian offensive in Pokrovsk and around it has temporarily slowed down. According to the report, there is currently no evidence that Russian forces launched additional offensives in the Pokrovsk direction on November 9th. A military intelligence source reported that Russian forces are present in most areas of Pokrovsk but are unable to encircle the city. At the same time, the enemy continues to block the logistical support of the Ukrainian armed forces in Myrnohrad. As of 8 a.m. on November 10th, according to data from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in the Pokrovsk direction, Ukrainian defenders repelled 97 attacks by the aggressor. In the Kostiantynivka direction, the enemy carried out 29 attacks. In the Oleksandrivka direction, the defense forces repelled 27 enemy assaults in the areas of the settlements of Yalta, Ivanivka, Zelena Rosha, Oleksandrohrad, Novoselivka, Sekneve, Arestopol, Stepne, Ribine, Zlahoda, and Verbove. And in the direction of the Andrivka-Klevtsova settlement, the remaining directions remain less tense. Over the past day, Russian occupation forces suffered losses of 1,090 personnel. Ukraine's defense forces also neutralized 7 tanks, 7 armored combat vehicles, 9 artillery systems, and 57 UAVs.
Naval drones once again attacked the Russian city of Tuapse on the Black Sea coast. This was reported by Russian Telegram channels. Residents of Tuapse reported explosions in the city during the night. At the same time, a drone danger alert lasted there for almost 8 hours. Telegram channels published eyewitness videos of the attack on Tuapse. The sounds of explosions can be heard in them. According to Dnipro Osint, a naval drone struck near Pier 167. Preliminary reports indicate that one of the Russian warships was hit. By the way, the port had already been attacked earlier, on the night of November 2nd. At that time, the SBU struck the oil terminal, specifically a tanker and the port infrastructure. Our journalists have gathered information about the latest attacks on the territory of the aggressor country, targeting facilities involved in supporting the occupation army. All of this is covered in detail in the report.
In the port of Tuapse in Russia's Krasnodar Krai, explosions rang out once again. On the night of November 10th, a fire broke out there after an attack by maritime drones. Osin Pavlik Gorbuz reported a likely hit near berth 167. Meanwhile, the operational headquarters of the Krasnodar Krai administration claimed to have allegedly neutralized the attack.
In the waters of the Black Sea near Tuapse, 4 USVs were neutralized. One of the unmanned boats detonated near the shoreline. The shockwave damaged the windows on the second floor of a 2-story house, as well as a garage and a boathouse.
This is the second attack on the port in recent times. On the night of November 2nd, Tuapse was already attacked by drones. As a result of the attack, a tanker and an oil terminal were damaged. According to OSINT analysts, at least 3 sources of fire were recorded at that time. Drones are attacking the port of Tuapse because it is one of the key hubs for the export of Russian oil and petroleum products. On the night of November 10th, things were also tense in Russia's Rostov region. There, drones attacked an oil refinery and a railway station. And on November 9th in Taganrog, Rostov region, a transformer caught fire on the grounds of an electrical substation. According to eyewitnesses, 2 explosions were heard in the city.
Something exploded here. There was a double explosion. Smoke noise, it was just crazy.
In the company, Rossetti reported that as a result of the incident, a high-voltage line was shut down in an emergency. In several districts of the city, the power supply was cut off, as reported by Taganrog residents in local Telegram channels.
When will the power be back? No one warned us anywhere that there would be an outage. They say the whole city is without power. At the very least, there's no power on Svobody Street and on Turgenevsky.
Attacks on Russia's energy facilities are becoming more and more frequent. For example, on the night of November 9th, the Voronezh CHPP-1 in the Russian city of Voronezh was attacked. Over there.
There was a big flash. There were 4 strikes, I think.
No, well, I heard 3, but they're saying 4.
Voronezh CHPP-1 is an important supplier of thermal energy for residential buildings and major enterprises in the city. The station supplies thermal energy to 4 districts of Voronezh: Levoberezhny, Zheleznodorozhny, Leninsky, and Centralny, as well as to more than 1,000 enterprises, including the largest plant in Voronezh, Voronezh Synthes Caoutchouc. Recently, there have been significant electricity problems in the Russian city of Belgorod. On the evening of November 8th, the governor of Belgorod Oblast, Vyacheslav Gladkov, reported that more than 20,000 people were left without power in Belgorod and the region as a result of the attack. The Luch CHP plant, which supplies electricity both to Belgorod and the region, was attacked there. On the morning of November 9th, the situation remained unchanged. According to Gladkov's report, the missile strike caused serious damage to the power and heating supply systems.
Donald Trump can sleep easy. The Senate has agreed to end the longest shutdown in the country's history. According to Reuters, the shutdown could cost the U.S. economy up to $15 billion a week in lost output. As is well known, the shutdown also delayed the export of American weapons worth more than $5 billion, which were intended for NATO allies and Ukraine. So now we too can breathe a sigh of relief and wish the U.S. President good health and high spirits to support our country. A large-scale project is unfolding in China aimed at overcoming aging and extending human life. The country's authorities are investing billions in biotechnology, and private companies are developing pills and procedures that they claim can slow down or even stop the aging process. Among such companies is Lonvi Biotechnics in the city of Shenzhen. Its chief technologist Lu Qinghua stated that research into antioxidants from grape seeds can significantly extend life. According to him, living up to 150 years is quite realistic. Although the scientific community treats such claims with caution, in China the project is actively supported at the state level. Earlier, Chinese television recorded a conversation between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Putin about the possibility of living to 150 years and even defeating death. While ascending the Tiananmen Gate, the leaders of China, Russia and North Korea, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, were accidentally recorded by a microphone during a private conversation, the topic of which was longevity and even potential immortality. Putin may attack another European country even before the war in Ukraine ends. He is at an impasse. Failures may force Putin to do this. This was stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in an interview with The Guardian. Notably, during that interview at the Mariinsky Palace, the power went out. A scheduled blackout had begun. What else the Ukrainian leader shared is coming up in the report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky believes that Russia may open a second front against another European country before the war in Ukraine ends. The Ukrainian leader stated this in an interview with The Guardian. Zelensky noted that the Kremlin is waging a hybrid war against Europe and is testing NATO's red lines. That's what I believe. Putin can do this. We must forget the general European skepticism that Putin first wants to occupy Ukraine and only then might go somewhere else. He can do both things at the same time. The president of Ukraine linked the increase in criminal activity across Europe, including drone incursions into the airspace of EU countries, to the fact that Russia failed to achieve significant progress on the front lines in the first months after the full-scale invasion in 2022. All of this is testing. Testing Europe, testing their response. All these drone attacks by Putin. What are they capable of? It's a test to see how America will respond to threats against countries that are in NATO. These tests are dangerous for the integrity of Europe. Putin is in a dead-end situation in terms of achieving real success. For him, it's more of a stalemate. Zelensky noted that just in October of this year, the Russian Federation lost 25,000 soldiers killed and wounded on the front line. According to him, Russia has concentrated 170,000 troops near Pokrovsk, but without success.
And
There is no success there, and there are a lot of casualties. President Volodymyr Zelensky also said in an interview with The Guardian that he is not afraid of Donald Trump, unlike other Western leaders. And he denied reports of an allegedly tense meeting in Washington, emphasizing that he has normal, businesslike, and constructive relations with the US president. Everyone is afraid of Trump. And that's true. This is the United States and they are leaders, and I see how many people build their relationships based precisely on that. I really want Ukraine to be respected and we respect the United States. Zelensky noted that the United States remains Ukraine's strategic partner, possibly for decades or even centuries. and that both sides share common values, unlike Imperial Russia. The president also stated that he intends to order 27 Patriot systems from the US, and he called on European countries to temporarily provide their own systems. During this interview at the Mariinsky Palace, the lights suddenly went out twice. But after the backup generator kicked in, the electricity was restored. We
are here
with electricity. You see, even in the presidential palace, the president of Ukraine expressed the opinion that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin gives orders to strike at Ukraine's energy infrastructure, as a result of which civilians are killed and the population is left without light and water, because he cannot break the society in the country any other way. He cannot create tension in our society in any other way. He understands that we have united the whole country and then all of Europe around us, and breaking that is very difficult. He is trying to do it. The interview took place in Kiev after massive Russian attacks on the power system, which left most regions without electricity. But
the Russian authorities continue their PR campaign for new types of nuclear weapons, Burevestnik missiles, Poseidon torpedoes, about the successful tests of which President Vladimir Putin announced against the backdrop of worsening relations with the United States. On November 9th, on propagandist Dmitry Kiselyov's program Vesti Nedeli, a segment aired with a vivid description of the capabilities of these weapons. Viewers were persuaded that in the event of a war with the Americans and NATO, they would have no chance against Putin's unparalleled weapons. Propagandists point out that Russia's new weapon cannot be compared to anything else, since even the recently tested American intercontinental missile, the Minuteman III, has a range limit of 13,000 kilometers, whereas the Burevestnik has unlimited range. However, the Russian Ministry of Defense has still not shown any footage of the Burevestnik and Poseidon tests. All the characteristics of these weapons are known only from Putin's words and the militaries. As for the Poseidon, no figures have been announced here either. Putin only stated that in terms of speed and depth of movement, there is nothing like it in the world, and that the torpedo's power significantly exceeds the speed of the Sarmat. And to quote, there are no means to intercept it. So global tensions are rising again. Donald Trump made a loud statement, claiming that Russia and China are secretly conducting nuclear tests in violation of international agreements. According to him, America will not stand aside when it comes to nuclear tests. The Kremlin is already trying to smooth over the situation and justify itself, stating that these accusations supposedly have no basis. What lies behind this new wave of nuclear rhetoric? Find out more in the following report. And don't forget to like this episode.
The Kremlin claims that Russia and China supposedly are not conducting nuclear weapons tests. Such a statement will be made by the press secretary of the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Peskov. According to him, it is first necessary to assess the advisability of such tests. Peskov added that the Kremlin expects clarifications from the US following the American leader's statement about possible nuclear tests. Thus, back on November 2nd, US President Donald Trump stated that Russia and China are secretly testing nuclear weapons. According to him, these tests are being conducted deep underground. At the same time, it is clear that Trump is not pleased with this situation. In an interview with CBC News, the American leader emphasized that the US has enough nuclear weapons to blow up the world 150 times over. Trump also reminded that America will not stand aside when it comes to nuclear testing.
We will conduct nuclear tests, just like other countries do. Russia conducts tests, China conducts tests, but they keep quiet about it. We are an open society. We are different. We talk about it.
CIA Director John Ratcliffe confirmed that the claims about secret nuclear tests by Russia and China are true. According to him, the CIA has information that both countries have conducted supercritical tests exceeding the permissible zero-yield level. So despite Moscow's attempts to hide this information, Washington does not believe the Kremlin's fairy tales. That's why they keep their weapons at the ready. At the same time, despite Trump's order to resume nuclear weapons testing, these measures currently do not involve actual nuclear explosions. U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright stated that this is about testing all components of nuclear weapons except for the warhead itself in order to check their geometry and readiness for potential use. I
think that the tests we're talking about now are system tests. These are not nuclear explosions. This is what we call subcritical explosions.
As journalist Michael Naki notes, in general, all of Putin's nuclear rhetoric is aimed at a single audience, Donald Trump.
It can be said that all of Putin's talk ended up as just another dud in a new round of siphoning off the defense budget. Russian soldiers at the front, riding in Ladas and Shigulis and flying their own drones, are probably thrilled about the fact that Russia now has, or will someday have, the missile to end all missiles and the torpedo to end all torpedoes.
NATO has also responded to Putin's nuclear threats. The Secretary General of the Alliance, Mark Rutte, reminded the Russian dictator that a nuclear war should never be started, as it is impossible to win. Rutte also noted that NATO's nuclear deterrence is the main guarantee of security. That is why it is important for these forces to remain reliable, safe, and effective. He added that NATO's recent nuclear exercises were successful, which demonstrates absolute confidence in the reliability of the alliance's nuclear deterrence.